555 years ago today, a man named Erasmus was born. A name that may ring a bell for many, but how many truly know why Erasmus of Rotterdam remains celebrated as one of history's greatest scholars and educators? Erasmus was born in 1469 and lived during a time of intense social, religious, and political change. This was the Renaissance, a period of rebirth in art, science, and learning. It was also the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, which would reshape Europe and spark intense debates around religion, politics, and education. Erasmus found himself at the heart of it all. His ideas and writings were circulated widely, thanks to the newly developed printing press, and his influence helped lay the groundwork for future generations of thinkers, reformers, and educators. The formative years, early life, and the road to education. Erasmus's life began in Gouda, Netherlands, but his early years were marked by tragedy. By the time he was 14, Erasmus had lost both of his parents, leaving him an orphan. Without parents to guide him, Erasmus was entrusted to guardians who had little interest in raising him. They sent him to a monastery, perhaps more as an escape from responsibility than a choice suited to Erasmus's talents. In 1492, he was ordained as a priest, yet Erasmus was far more fascinated by books and learning than he was by traditional clerical life. Even at a young age, he was developing a unique worldview, one that prioritized human connection, education, and self-awareness over rigid orthodoxy. Erasmus was gentle by nature and avoided extremes, disliking the restrictive lifestyle of monastic life. The rules were strict, the food often poor, and, as he would later write, he felt that his colleagues in the monastery lacked genuine piety. They acted devout outwardly, saying the right prayers and wearing the correct robes, but Erasmus could see that their devotion was often only surface deep. This experience deepened his belief that virtue was a matter of true inner piety, not external displays. Over time, this idea became central to his teachings. A scholar and critic of hypocrisy, early writings and views on religion. Erasmus's belief in moderation shaped his early writings and relationships, especially regarding religion. He was both a devout Christian and an admirer of the classical works of ancient Greece and Rome. He felt strongly that the two, Christian piety and classical thought, could coexist. In one of his first major works, Against the Barbarians, Erasmus criticized those within the church who dismissed the wisdom of ancient writers simply because their views differed from Christian teachings. He argued that the church's reluctance to engage with the classics was a barrier to progress and understanding. For Erasmus, there was always a middle way, a path that could balance faith and learning without compromising either. Yet, Erasmus's dedication to balance did not mean he avoided controversy. He criticized the clergy's hypocrisy openly, arguing that outward religious acts were meaningless without real inner devotion. To Erasmus, this wasn't just a personal view, it was a guiding principle. He took it upon himself to call out hypocrisy wherever he saw it, whether in local clergy or prominent church leaders. Erasmus's belief in reconciling faith and reason set the tone for his future work and established him as a voice of reform within the church. The Wanderer, Erasmus's life as a scholar. Eventually, Erasmus gained his independence and began the life of a wandering scholar. This freedom allowed him to connect with other thinkers across Europe, exchanging ideas and deepening his understanding of the world. Erasmus traveled extensively, to England, Italy, France, and beyond, always in search of libraries, manuscripts, and learning. He was drawn to centers of knowledge and engaged with scholars, educators, and clergy members wherever he went. This phase of Erasmus's life was marked by intellectual freedom and curiosity, but it was also one of physical hardship, as Erasmus often traveled with limited means. Erasmus became well known for his sharp wit and biting satire. His most famous work, In Praise of Folly, is a humorous critique of society's many flaws, including the greed and corruption within the church. Erasmus's satire didn't spare anyone, not even the Pope. In one particularly scathing piece, he mocked Pope Julius II, a man more interested in military conquests than in spiritual matters, by depicting him being turned away from heaven by St. Peter. Yet, Erasmus's criticism was never about tearing people down. He used humor to expose contradictions and inspire reflection. His work was a call for reform, for integrity, and for a return to the simple truths of the Christian faith. War and Peace, Erasmus's views on conflict and his legacy of pacifism. Beyond his satirical critiques, Erasmus was also deeply opposed to war, a sentiment rare among his contemporaries. Erasmus believed that war brought unnecessary suffering and wasted lives, a stance he held firmly despite living in a time when conflict was common. His favorite saying was from the Greek poet Pindar, "War is sweet to those who have not known it." Erasmus argued that disputes should be resolved through reason and dialogue rather than bloodshed. His commitment to peace was one of the reasons he was admired by both kings and commoners. His message transcended social and political boundaries. Erasmus's views on peace and justice set him apart from other scholars of his day. He urged rulers to prioritize their people's welfare and avoid war whenever possible. His moral stance against violence and his insistence on a more peaceful and enlightened approach to governance earned him a reputation as a voice of conscience in a time when such voices were few and far between. Erasmus the Educator. Contributions to learning and the spread of knowledge. Erasmus's passion for education drove his relentless work ethic. He dedicated his life to producing a body of knowledge that could enlighten and inspire people of all ages and backgrounds. Erasmus published a revised Latin edition of the New Testament, correcting many of the errors he found in the Latin Vulgate, the standard version at the time. This bold step not only made the Bible more accessible, but also encouraged readers to approach Scripture with a critical eye. His translation helped set the stage for the Protestant Reformation, though Erasmus remained within the Catholic Church, advocating reform from within rather than breaking away. Erasmus wrote books, essays, and treatises covering a wide range of topics. He even produced educational materials for children, a revolutionary concept in his time. One of his most famous lines reveals his priorities. "When I have a little money, I buy books, and if I have any left, I buy food and clothes." Erasmus believed that learning was a lifelong pursuit and saw education as the foundation for a just and peaceful society. His works reached people across Europe, thanks in large part to the printing press, and influenced generations of scholars, reformers, and even political leaders. The peaceful reformer in an era of revolution. Erasmus's career coincided with the rise of the Reformation, a time of religious upheaval across Europe. Martin Luther's challenge to the Catholic Church resonated with many, but Erasmus held firm to his own path. He sympathized with some of Luther's criticisms but urged caution and moderation. Erasmus believed in reform, not rebellion. He sought change through dialogue and reason, not division and violence. This position put Erasmus in a difficult place. Both the Church and the Reformers sought his support, yet Erasmus refused to fully align with either side. Despite immense pressure, Erasmus maintained his independence. He argued for a peaceful solution and refused to condemn the Reformers, though he also didn't abandon the Church. His balanced approach drew criticism from both camps, yet Erasmus's integrity remained unshaken. He was one of the few voices calling for unity and understanding in a time of conflict, a stance that speaks to his commitment to peace and moderation. The first European. Erasmus's influence and connections. Erasmus was truly a man of Europe, traveling widely and corresponding with some of the most powerful figures of his time. His letters were exchanged with kings, popes, artists, and scholars across the continent. Erasmus's friendships with influential people like Thomas More, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, and Martin Luther gave him a unique influence that spanned politics, religion, and education. His vast network of correspondence helped spread his ideas far and wide, earning him the nickname, the First European. Erasmus didn't just preach unity. He lived it, bridging cultural and political divides. Erasmus's legacy. A life dedicated to learning and humanity. By the time Erasmus passed away in 1536, Europe was engulfed in religious strife. The wars, executions, and book burnings that followed were far removed from the peaceful reform he had envisioned. Erasmus's vision of a unified church and a continent of educated, thoughtful citizens seemed a distant dream. Yet his words continued to inspire. His dedication to education, moderation, and the pursuit of truth resonated beyond his lifetime. Erasmus's legacy lies in his belief that it is no great feat to burn a man, but it is a great achievement to persuade him. To this day, Erasmus is remembered as a man who lived by his convictions, who valued learning above all, and who dreamed of a peaceful world connected through knowledge and understanding. In his words, he was a citizen of the world, known to all and to all a stranger. His legacy endures in the countless schools, scholarships, and educational programs that bear his name, continuing his mission to uplift humanity through education and wisdom. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the life of Erasmus, history's greatest educator and advocate for peace. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a Renaissance legacy, please like, subscribe, and share our channel to keep exploring history with us.